just
I mean,
you've
got to hit the go live button.
It's live. It's live.
Is
it
it live?
just took 5,000 clickings.
All right.
All right.
Let's move this back a little bit. Sorry, everyone. Nancy's very sorry.
I'm very sorry that I'm so stupid. It's just a continual issue for me. Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Do we seem extra cheerful and peppy?
Yes.
You know why? Why is that? Why are we extra cheerful and peppy, Welch?
COVID. Wait, no, you don't have it anymore, though.
And you don't know if you have it or not. You're trusting he's trusting my test.
I'm outsourcing my tests.
Wait a minute. I don't hear anything. This is wrong.
What do you mean you don't hear anything?
There's not. I don't know.
Look, there's people there. It's fine.
Okay, it sounds muffly.
It sounds muffly?
Yeah.
It could be your headphone. Why don't you just moan in the microphone and I'll go see your headphone volume? What's your problem?
Hey, everyone. I should be a lot more cheerful for you, and I super am cheerful. Hi. Mike's not hot on Nancy. That's what I'm saying. I don't hear it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keep talking.
I'm talking. Thank you, Brian Chandler. I thought I sounded kind of woofy and echoey, and it's this. Oh, there we go. Yay, Matt fixed it.
All right.
Thanks, dude.
Let's keep them all up.
Yeah, we're just gonna keep them all up. Hey, everyone! It is December 29th in New York City. What was the quote you gave me? 50,000 people in New York got COVID this week or yesterday?
The last I saw from the hysterical city councilman Mark Levine is that there's
people named Levine.
It was that there's just under 40,000 New Yorkers tested positive yesterday or something. And now we have 1 out of 50 people on the island of Manhattan.
That was what it was, 1 out of 50. So
got positive in the past week, which includes us. This is our, by the way, heavily recommended Omicron cocktail, which I'm running like 3 days in a row. I don't know what
I'm on 2 days in a row. Yeah.
This is very complicated. Write this down. You might need to tattoo it to remember it. Whiskey and Diet Coke. Why is it Diet Coke?
Okay, so it's weird. Like I had some Diet Coke here because that's what I drink. I don't drink regular Coke.
It's damn good.
I had some at Matt's. I had the Diet Coke. I was like, he's like, all right, we'll try it with Diet. Tastes amazing. For some reason, it like amplifies it. Yeah. Anyway, we both got COVID, or we both found out we got COVID. It was a week ago today.
I think so. Yeah.
Today, because what was supposed to happen was
that's right.
Fifth Column was going to come record here at Paloma.
Josh Zips was going to come in.
Zips was coming in. And a friend of Josh Zips, who was coming with him, said, I think I'm just going to like bring some, at-home tests so we could just test to make sure we're cool. And I'm like, all right, whatever. I'd made like lasagnas and we were like going to have a nice time. And
I was all, haha, that guy's a loser.
Yeah. And then I was like, Matt, maybe we should. Matt was I think you were at your house. You were, because we were texting. I was like, maybe we should just check. I mean, I haven't checked. I had checked like a week and a half before because I felt kind of crappy, but it was negative and you had the same thing. And then he checked and I
had a little cough, a little unproductive cough, back of the throat, which everybody
has
in the Northeast has right now.
So he was positive, and I don't know. I wasn't part of the discussion. You canceled everybody coming over here. I then was like, well, we've been hanging out. So I went and got Carol Markowitz. I drove a freaking.
I'm still shocked. I presume that she had it. So we were here. If you guys haven't watched it, you should, because it's really good. We talked with Carol Markowitz 2 weeks ago now.
Right.
And it was right before a Reason happy hour at which most of the people who I know attended have tested positive. And basically we even talked about this, I think, with Carol Markowitz, because I was expressing a little trepidation about going to various social engagements in New York upcoming, including that. So that was on a Thursday. And there's 3 parties that we could have.
We had 3 parties on Saturday. And we were like, I don't think I want to go, man.
Yeah.
We were literally sitting here with Carol in between us this close
just
on a
breathing on
Thursday, licking her.
Farting on her.
Yeah. And then anyway, we got COVID, tested positive a week ago today. Matt got a positive. Then I went and got a test from Carol.
My daughter got a positive. She was really cool about it, though.
She was like super chill. Izzy was like, guys, relax. I'm going to just make sure you're comfortable. Yeah. We're going to just like chill out, watch lovely things. Anyway, today I just took a test. My daughter brought me a test though we like are literally meeting outside by her car with a mask on. I am negative as of today. You are.
I'm going to be negative.
We're assuming because we're breathing the same air. So anyway, boy, this is super exciting.
Yeah.
Right? This is
well, listen,
content you're paying for.
Listen, this is for. I know you people are all sick of people in New York, but that you're right to be, even though we're awesome. But also, I get like text messages from family and stuff. Like, what should we do? Is it a good idea to get boosted? My answer is yes. I think you all should get vaxxed and boosted as much as you can, because we were sick for 24 hours, basically. Everyone that I know, with one exception or one or two exceptions, were basically just
one friend of ours' husband got pretty slammed, which is weird because he's young and he's strong and
but he's abusing drugs. Peace out. No, but the message that we have to tell you, and I'm telling my wife, who's coming home tomorrow if she jumps through all the COVID hoops with my 6-year-old from Europe, and if
she gets home.
But she's been testing negative all throughout, every little bit, which is miraculous. They're gonna get it. They're gonna come home to New York, and she's like, the Omicron is gonna be like the Siberian fireball. It's just
and no one's not gonna get it. I mean, and this is the thing: it's not terrible if you're not like, I don't have a compromised immune system. It was a kind of a cold. I still don't feel like 100%. Maybe I just need one more drink and then I will. But you know what?
Do you ever really feel 100%?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Every morning.
Right.
But anyway, you're gonna get it. Everyone's gonna get it.
Tony Pierce asked the important question.
What are the COVID poops like?
Tony, you have special poops. I mean,
wait, what? This is our friend Tony Pierce in LA.
I've known Tony. Tony and I coached Little League together in 1990. I was the hippie. He was the black guy. That's changed now. I'm the black guy and he's the hippie.
That literally sounds like a Starsky and Hutch kind
of. The internet has one of the greatest photographs. Tony, go find that and paste that in here, because people need to see the truth. The best. I could spend the next hour talking about how awesome that team was, especially the one time that we won a game.
Your hair and Tony's hair in that are epic in that photo. They both have the best hair. So anyway,
long story short, Tony, you are going to have weird poops no matter what, because you're Tony Pierce and you eat the worst food of any human being over the age of 20. However, no, it's nothing. I mean, this is a cold. It's just you have a cold. You sleep a little bit and your throat hurts.
We were talking earlier, just a little while ago, like, how do we're both doing a lot of things, a lot of hustling, a lot of work. And I was like, I got to do some other stuff to like make some money. I mean, like just in terms of, I've got a Substack and we've got, palomamedia.com and I write for different publications, but like, how do I like hustle and make some money? Maybe it's really the poops. It's all in the poops.
A little like some poop diagramming.
Yes.
We're going straight to scat. It's been like 5 minutes on this thing. Oh, eight. In fairness. Thanks, Tony.
But I actually don't know. I haven't noticed anything weird. I don't know.
Do we want to hear about Nancy's poop?
No, I don't. I'm just answering his question.
Right.
I don't know that there's anything to report in that area. So, welcome everybody. Obviously, this has been a productive 8 minutes and 24 seconds so far. Thanks for joining us here at Paloma Media Studios in Chinatown. I hope you're getting. Where is Camille? That is the question. It should be like, where's Waldo? Where is Camille?
He's in Tribericon or whatever.
Who knows?
Rich person enclave that he lives in.
He's like hovering in some futuristic spacecraft over the entire country, looking.
Especially now that he's hitting the weed all the time,
or the whatever. He had some kind of like psychedelic. He's looking for a place to land, right? He is there for his family. He's finding the next home base, and that requires.
You should hear him. We had
worldwide hovering. We
just had a 5th column drop this afternoon that we recorded last night, and he waxes very poetical. And by poetical, I mean about the new James Webb telescope. So that's
I will say, my mom, some of you may know, probably nobody here knows. My mom lives a couple hours, upstate New York, and Camille was there once. And left pretty late at night, like 1 a.m. And I walked him out to his car and he looked up in the sky. He's like, your mom's skies are amazing.
They're pretty good.
They're incredible. And he's like, and I live now in the Bay Area where it's just like, fuck. So yeah, pretty nice. Telescoping up there. Bring your telescope up there, Camille. So
Peter Ridge says Nancy should be on the 5th column more. Really?
Tell him what you found out when you did the metrics.
So I went back because I'm a super normal, and I made an Excel spreadsheet of every Fifth Column episode and how long it was and who showed up for work that day and who the guests were and everything like that. Nancy's been on more than anybody, if you count her like being super wasted on a Patreon episode.
Look, guys, that was totally your fault feeding me, and I was not asleep. I just wanted that on the record right now. I was not asleep. I just
made a snoring noise.
I just blacked out. Okay, is that better than falling asleep?
I'm not
anyway,
really sure that's a difference.
We are here today, obviously entertaining no one but ourselves. I'm going to subscribe to Patreon soon. I would love that. Please. Well, wait. No, you should subscribe to the Patreon. But you guys should go. You should go over to Paloma and Media. And,
well, that's what I assumed he was talking about.
Oh yeah, Paloma Media Patreon. Please, please.
So this website was launched, as you people all know, but the ones who don't,
6 weeks ago.
7 weeks ago, right?
6 weeks ago,
mid-November, and the stuff on it's really great. Tony, if you haven't looked at it, go look at Scott Ross's Fats, or our friend Fats,
my God.
Remembrance of John Madden. It's as good as an obituary you're going to read out there. It's just really wonderful little thing. Nancy has a wonderful piece about someone that Tony Pierce and I knew when we worked at the college newspaper together. I never would have thought that I would be in Dude's barn, which I've been in many times. That barn where he was supposed to be his studio to work in, that Nancy's mom, who was his wife, set up for him. But in fact, what he preferred to do, from what I understand, is just basically go to Coney Island every day and paint all the people.
So we're talking about David Levine. If you go to palomamedia.com right now, it's the main story up there. As my stepfather, he died 12 years ago today. I was with him when he died, and I knew him since I was 15 years old. And what Matt is talking about is up at my mom's in upstate New York, because they lived in the city, they lived upstate, but mostly he didn't really want to go upstate. He didn't learn to drive till he was like 55 years old.
Not a country mouse.
Because my mother made him. She's like, dude, if we're going upstate every weekend, he's like, I don't want to go upstate. She's like, well, you're going and you're going to be able to drive. He hated it though. But anyway, and it was nice up there. And there was this barn and she redid it and she built this like, dude, so I will get a photo and I will post it at some point.
Walking tour of that place would be pretty great. Yeah, actually,
this
a video
is a crazily cool looking.
The light comes
in.
And it's
big windows and like you would think it'd be like artist's dream, but no, just like I want to go to Coney Island. I want to sit on my little fold-out canvas stool, paint the schmata ladies and paint the kids and paint the cyclone, and that's what he wanted to do. He's a Brooklyn boy, and that was his muse. And if you go over, I did a piece, like I said, up on palomamedia.com today, and I have some links there, and I've got some paintings he did. He's just this amazing guy. I loved him very, very much. Funniest guy, like one of the funniest people I ever knew. And you know his caricatures. I mean, you might not think you know his caricatures, but you do.
Basically, New York Review of Books is so intertwined with him. I was just saying on Twitter earlier today, I can't imagine or think of a publication that is whose visual style is so wrapped up in a single artist. But he did these characters, big heads usually and tiny bodies. And
cross-hatching
a lot of little great line drawings, and just they were the best characters, like late 20th century power figures. Famously, he has Kissinger under the sheets fucking the world,
which the staff of The Nation walked out of. And The Nation, like, how much more liberal can you get? Vic Navasky, a name
Vic Navasky, my God.
It's pulling this name out of the past. I actually may have met the guy.
I almost wrote for the guy.
Oh, did you?
We were correspondents when I lived in Prague.
Just drop my name, Matt. It's all going to be good.
Didn't work out.
But anyway, so David draws this. So here's what David used to do. He would read the tear sheets as they were called, like, before the magazine New Review Books was published that week. Messenger would come and bring the big tear sheets, the articles. Dave would read them. And I mean, I was in the house. I was a teenager. He read all these things. Guys, let me tell you, these things were like 15,000 words.
Yeah, the New York Review of Books,
like,
it was kind of a big, sort of, not quite a broadsheet, just an oversized kind of a publication. Still exists, but I think it's gotten smaller, like everything has over time. And the essays, which were really, really long, literary and journalistic. They would always there'd be numbers. Like number 1.
That's right.
And then like 2.
Number 137, right?
And 13.
So he would read them. And I mean, I didn't really know this, but I appreciated as we went on. He would sort of like intellectually and creatively metabolize it. And then he would draw what like his sort of interpretation and commentary. And as I put in the piece today, it wasn't that he was like illustrating for you what this piece was about. He was illustrating for you like what he felt about it. But it was also very, I mean, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, but just lacerating or hilarious. And he was masterful. And I'll say something else here that I did not say explicitly in the piece because you do not need to say what is implied. David always thought of himself as a painter, and he is unbelievable. Guys, go and look up David Levine art. Go look at some of his paintings or go to plumamedia.com. I put a few up there. They are incredibly masterful. I mean, he's in the Metropolitan Museum. He's unbelievable. But he made his living as a caricaturist.
That's what made him famous.
That's what made him famous. That's what made his living. And it's what's, so interesting, Matt, like you probably can't make your living doing what he did anymore. It's just past. It's kind of passed into the past, but it doesn't matter at all, like where the technology has taken us, which is great. I love new and everything new that is coming. But what he did, it's the best. It's indelible. And it doesn't matter like where you're from. You can look at this drawing and if you say like, wow, that's a comment on what's happening in the zeitgeist right now.
And they were also they were portraits of power on some level, cultural power or political power or whatever, but people. And for like a dumb California kid, it was mesmerizing because it exists in a media that it's far away from us. Again, Tony Pierce, who's watching, at least watch the first half. He's going pooping now. But we worked at a college newspaper together, and we would get all these publications. And this is late '80s. Village Voice back then was really in a strong heyday. The Nation was also really good. People just yelling at each other constantly in the pages, although it wasn't much to look at. But the New York Review of Books with these David Levine caricatures, and it was like these are the people kind of like grappling with the intellectual and political life of the world, which felt very far away from us, with the exception of Tony has a good question there. With the exception of Ronald Reagan, who we were at UC Santa Barbara, so Ronald Reagan was always sort of ever present there. But Tony asks Nancy, did he ever paint you?
So this is interesting. So I put this in the piece today. Dave, he drew my dad. Because it was the 70s and 80s. My parents were all mixed up. Like my dad's having Christmas with all of us. We're all in the house. That's fine. My daughter, I've got an incredible little drawing of her on her first birthday. He said to my mother, I've never loved anyone as much as I love Tava, which is my daughter. He drew my brother. He drew his kids. He drew my wife. His wife, my mom.
Would you like to announce something here tonight?
He never drew me, which is interesting. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's fine. I never really thought about it at the time, but then after he died, but I do have a bunch of drawings of his, and I have actually an incredible painting of his that was part of a series that it's too long and complicated to go into. But no, he didn't draw me. But you know who did draw me? Who's in the piece I wrote today is Roman Genn, who I mentioned.
Look, Nancy.
Look, Nancy, you're
come. David Levine, you don't deserve to sit on chair.
Yes, Roman's a friend, a Russian friend, the caricaturist. Anyway, Roman did draw me for the LA Times, but no, David never did draw me. I wonder what he would have done. Like big eyes. Big eyes. Anyway, David.
He did draw her mom fucking dudes.
Well, no, okay. No, hold on. It wasn't fucking, but what he would do every year for either her birthday or Valentine's Day, which are actually a few days apart, he would draw her in the arms or like somewhat canoodling with someone that she loved, like a Gary Cooper, or the one that's the best known one is Sam Shepard. So it's like, Sam Shepard, who's like shirtless from the waist up, like this, holding my mom going like this. And my mom's naked. Anyway, Dave was awesome. We're just yakking here. But anyway, one thing I got a little segue here.
Oh.
The segue is when Dave was drawing for the New York Review of Books, which by the way was people, you know how sometimes people just read the New Yorker and look at the cartoons, right?
Yeah.
Well, the New York Review of Books, people would just look at Dave's drawings, right? Okay. Who was one of the big writers for the New York Review of Books at that point?
Let me think. Did she die last week?
It's Joan Didion. Joan Didion obviously wrote for many places and many books, nonfiction and fiction. But her main outlet for many years after, I think it was Saturday Evening Post, was the New York Review of Books, which was a place that you were, as a writer, given real estate, meaning you have a 15,000 word story. That's what you're going to do. You have a story that is told elliptically, or is told as my old editor Emily White used to say, out of the side of the eye, the way that Didion writes. That's where she published. I mean, really, her biggest works that we know. Maybe other places too, and I'm not aware of it. Yeah, and Dave did draw her, and
Wonderful drawing.
I have her character. I mean, it's not the original. Where is the original? But I do have that caricature of his. But let's talk a little bit about Didion, because that was meaningful to both of us.
Yeah, much more to you, which is not to say that it didn't have meaning for me, but that I haven't read her fiction, unlike you, and I was always dazzled by her. She wrote about my high school in 1993,
right.
In a piece called "The Trouble in Lakewood."
You should just give limb that a little bit.
So, 1993 is a bad time for Southern California in general, after the 40 years of post-war boom, which in our area in particular is tied with the aerospace industry. Everyone's dad was an aerospace engineer. My dad was, we used to call it engineer's disease, ED, before it was ED was ED. And engineer's disease described basically all of our dads, which is because they knew how, the answer to the equation that has to do with this one fucking lug nut that goes into this, space capsule. They think that they know everything about everything else when they absolutely do not, to the extent which my father, at some point when he was still on top of his game, would come home from Eastern Europe, and he would Eastern Europe explain me like, well, let me tell you what's going on in Prague. I'm like, I live there. You live in Long Beach. Nope. But anyways, so there was trouble in Lakewood, as the headline.
Isn't that the name of her?
That's the name of the headline in the New Yorker from 93. And it was about how kids who had gone to my high school, bunch of boys, had started this informal kind of gang called the Spur Posse, which is a pretty good name, to be honest. And it's just a bunch of jock, peaking at age 17 type guys, which our neighborhood excelled in, as many people said. We were Levittown, suburbia, and they had, and this is less funny, they had started using a combination of sports numbers and sexual conquests. And people of a certain age, I'm 53, Tony Pierce is older. They remember such kind of, back in the day, bad behavior. But basically these guys who go like, hey, I'm Reggie Jackson now because this is the 44th time I've done X to a girl. And they were kind of creepy and awful about it. And there was accusations of rape or sexual misconduct. I think that none of them ever went anywhere in the courts of law. But what shocked the country, and there was, Oprah, and there was all the whatever was happening at the time. Maury Povich, I presume. I was living away. I don't really know, but it was basically all tabloid, TV, and people came into Lakewood, my little community, and interviewed people, and boys are being boys, and what? That's crazy. What are you talking about? So her piece, Trouble in Lakewood, which I recommend people read. I usually read it every 3 or 4 years, and my reaction to it has changed over time, which my initial reaction, which is not wrong, and it's not dissimilar to DJ Waldy, the great suburban memoirist who has been a city official in Lakewood this entire time. He's born and raised in Lakewood. I've interviewed him. He's a wonderful guy. Donald Waldy, he had a piece in the LA Times talking about her piece, because it really, it's 5 trillion words long, and he's in it, and her attentions actually helped his own literary career. So I'm sure he's tangled up about it.
We are going to link that piece tomorrow on palomamedia.com.
Go check it out.
Waldy's piece.
Too long of an explanation, but she basically came in and made it a story. I learned more about where I grew up from reading that than most everything else, which made me hate her guts. I mean, like, no, I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't happy because
kill the messenger.
Not kill the messenger, but like I was a journalist and I had paid attention to my craft from age 18, and I was part of the process, and I had not known a lot of things. And then I also had a lot of questions about choices that she made in the piece, that years later, I understand the choices much more. Like she goes on this extended jag about an art exhibit in the Irvine Museum. And it's like, well, how does that have any bearing on this? And as years go by, I kind of get it. So it's an amazing thing. I read, and for those of you, and I'm talking to Tony since he's just here, but people who have a similar sensibility that I do about like music in California and shit like that. I read for the first time, just because she died, the White Album, her essay that was also the title of a collection of hers from the late 70s, and that basically covers the gamut from like 1968 to 1979, but boiled down to its essence was that after the Manson murders, we all were not surprised. And that I'm not spoiling the ending, I don't think, by saying that, but it's such a masterful piece, including her hanging out with the Doors, including her like making bouillabaisse for vegetarians in the same pot that you have. Yeah. It's a piece of writing that's unfathomable that anyone would do today, in a 1,000 different reasons, not least of which is the way that she uses her own first person character, not to make it about her, but to actually serve the purposes of the essay. It is so masterful. It's wonderful. But I've talked too long about someone who isn't responsible for my journalistic career, unlike your relationship with Joan Didion. So why don't you tell the class why you are only a journalist because of Joan Didion?
Well, I don't know if it's exactly like that, but I will tell the little story. So I wrote earlier in the week after it's funny. So palomamedia.com is Matt and me and someone, Scott Ross in London. I was sitting at my desk the other day, and he, on the Slack channel, he's like, "Sorry, dog." I was like, "What?" Like, I don't know what he's talking about. He's like, "Joan Didion." And I stopped. I was like, "Oh my God. Oh my God." I mean, look, people that are in their 80s, they're going to die. Like I'm not cognizant of this, but she has meant more to me than any writer. I'm definitely not the only female writer or writer in general of my generation that has said that. But I will tell my small Didion story. So anyway, I wrote about it earlier in the week. You can go read it. I recorded it probably here. Maybe I didn't put it here. I'll put it here at some point on YouTube. I think this is a story you're talking about. I dropped out of high school, went back. They let me in for some stupid reason. And the head of the school, who had kicked me out, is running it was like a fancy school called St. Anne's at Brooklyn Heights. All right, let's just get that out of the way. He lets me in. It's 6 students, and we're like Wednesday afternoons in his office, his fancy office with a desk, and we're reading stuff, including Slouching Towards Bethlehem, which is Joan Didion's book. And
her first most famous collection of
essays coming from San Francisco and reporting on the Summer of Love and etc. So, and then the assignment is to write an essay and read it out loud to the class. Meanwhile, this guy who has known me since I was 4 years old, because I started at the school when I was 4, and then he kicked me out when I was 13 or 14, saying that I had turned the school into a brothel and an opium den. A bit of an exaggeration, but in any case, he lets me back in. But, I don't know. So I'm in the class, and we're in the little office now, and I read my piece, and I look up, and he's sitting on the edge of his desk and he's looking at me. And the only way I could describe it is that when my daughter, when I would wake her up from her crib when she was like 8 months old, her eyes would like flash open and look at me beaming. He was beaming at me. And he looked at me and he's like, oh my God, you're a writer. As though that explained everything. It explained all the bad behavior, all the craziness. Of course, I had absolutely no idea what he's talking about. I was like, wait, what? But it was Didion that sort of, I guess, trip started. Is that a trip jump?
It is now.
Trip something, right? And I have just read her pretty deeply and repeatedly, and not just her nonfiction, which is something that Matt and I talked a lot about this week because, you know, as journalists, you read her nonfiction and she's able, as I said earlier, to tell stories, you know, sort of elliptically and out of the side of the eye. And she's not so much trying to impress something on you directly. She's trying to give you enough information to sort of a constellation of moments, right? And then maybe the moment will jump. It'll jump to, you know, whatever, some art show. And you're like, what the fuck are we doing here? But at a certain point, if you can go there, you start to understand something larger. And I got it. And I started, you know, I became a journalist. Of course, we all sort of, you know, used her tics a little bit to jumpstart our own writing. But I do sometimes consider myself to be writing in the same sort of path or field or lane or whatever that she's doing. But when she died, I went and read Play It As It Lays. And I've read, I think, all of her fiction. And I recommend it because it's of a very different caliber than her nonfiction, but also, of course, of a piece, but also very, for me, very heavy in a sense. She's telling you something about survival and escape. And I have to admit that, you know, being home with COVID, all my Christmas plans went topsy-turvy, upside down. I was home by myself. I think it was Christmas Day. I reread Play It As It Lays. And I literally was like, I'm going to the airport. I'm going to LaGuardia tonight. I'm getting on a plane and I'm the fuck out of here. And you will never, ever fucking see me again. That's what Didion's fiction can kind of do to you. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's just very, very interesting.
It's true that I ordered her to stop reading.
She did. He did. I was like, hi, so here's the safe deposit key if you need it. He's like, stop now. We kind of still need you here. But I do want to, I want to recommend, obviously, you know, there's Play It As It Lays. There's the White Album. There's Slouching Toward Bethlehem, which I highly, highly recommend to explain something which actually in some ways has a lot of parallels with summer 2020 and the kind of riots and the way that people think that they were doing the right thing in this country where you're going to make things better, and what you actually saw being done in the Summer of Love in 1967, 1968 in San Francisco. It's mind-blowing. But here's a book I never hear talked about. It's called After Henry. It's just a weird little collection of 8 or 9 of her pieces from DC, New York, and LA, which if you have not read Didion, I would recommend this. Nobody buys this book. I don't know why anyone talks about it. She dedicated it to an old editor of hers. It really will give you a sense of what she can do. As will an essay by Caitlin Flanagan that we linked, which is not up there anymore, on Paloma Media the other day about Joan Didion's successes and also her failures. I don't think there's anyone like her. I'm like actually going to now start crying. I'm not going to start crying. Relax, dude. You don't have to believe everything I say. She's I don't know anyone else that has affected me like her in terms of her work.
There have been great essays this past week from, and I would recommend Nancy's another one from Caitlin Flanagan, and that should link you back to the original one from 6-7 years ago, which is amazing. Megan Dahm our friend,
Megan
also,
Town.
and Carrie Howley, our
Carrie
friend,
Howley
had a
did
really good piece
super interesting one.
as well.
It's all women.
It's so my new theory
It's
that I
women.
just developed while we're here is that for people roughly of our age,
That's right.
that the dudes were Hunter Thompson and the chicks were Joan Didion.
Someone wrote that the other day. Who was it?
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was a
It's
piece I
not
read
that original.
yesterday. So it's okay. I don't remember who did it. I read it yesterday, and it was like that was our sort of North Star at that point. And I've read Hunter Thompson, obviously, and he's super entertaining, and you get all the but Didion's a different sort of quality.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got velocity.
He's got velocity.
She's like, whoa.
The stuff that he did before he was famous, or mid famous, like the actual piece that he wrote when he was working on, when he was doing Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas on the side because it was too heavy, was a piece about Ruben Salazar, the LA Times journalist, getting killed in the Silver Dollar Cafe on Whittier Boulevard or something like that. I could be getting a little bit wrong, but it's about right. About the Chicano uprising in LA in 1970. Is the piece is called? It's collected in The Great Shark Hunt, and it's called Strange Rumblings in Aztlan. And talk about similar to the White Album piece, like it's a type of journalism that's unfathomable now. And it was again so heavy that on the side he went and wrote just one of the most hilarious kind of send-ups of On the Road you can imagine, and creating sentences that half the people who are, and by half I mean all the dudes who are watching this could quote from their sleep in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. But yeah, height of his powers incredible, especially before he became the fame caricature. But the dudes who were inspired by him all went through the same thing, and he did the same thing with Hemingway, which is that you start by doing that thing. In fact, Joe, you know what Joan Didion and Hunter Thompson both did, is that they retyped Hemingway, early Hemingway, usually A Farewell to Arms, I believe it is. Both of them retyped Farewell to Arms to get the music of the language.
That's right. Well, because I mean, any writer out there, I don't know about any writer, but I would assume you, because you also your music stuff, like you got to hear your senses. You got to hear your senses. I do it constantly. When if an editor starts messing with my senses, I was like, guys, you can't do that. Like I got to be able to hear the rhythm. And Hemingway had that, incredibly. But we all can and do. And you talking about this just makes me miss the long form. I wrote for the LA Weekly for 20 years. I'm like the 8,000 word piece where you're telling people without exactly telling them, you're just bringing them in more. Okay.
Tony just tried to do Bukowski's better than HST. Tony's I remember that Tony was a graduate. I don't know, did you actually graduate from the College of Creative Studies in Santa Barbara?
We can just have the conversation right here.
No, it's fine
for the world. It's good.
College of Creative Studies was this thing that was started by a crazy education free thinker in the late 60s and early 70s, whose name escapes me, but it's probably Harvey Mullich. And it was it's this thing where you don't get grades, but you got to show up, and you got to keep your diary, and you got to read the Bible, and you got to do this and that. It's a nuts and wonderful thing. Poetry, music. We know a ton of people who came out of that and have had really interesting careers. Tony's among them. Marvin Mudrick. Close. You're right. That's close, right?
Marvin
Mudrick. He remembers. Tony wrote a piece that I remember still 35 years later. It's about Bukowski and Hemingway pissing off the Santa Barbara Pier.
Is it a real thing, or you imagined it?
No, they didn't. They didn't pee off.
Okay, I don't know. Could happen. Well, what about Fonte? Can we throw Fonte in there too?
Fonte is you discover him after you discover Bukowski, because I think Bukowski tells us to go back and look at that.
Yeah, I enjoyed Fonte. There was a ton
Ask
there.
the Dusk or Dust.
Dusk.
Yeah, if you haven't looked into John Fonte, that's both Bukowski and Fonte are tickets into great LA noir. And at the risk of French goodbying, because we're at a minute 39.
We are. This is our longest ever, dude.
Dan Fonte, his kid, hugely underrated, Tony says, and he's right about that.
Cool.
There is a entire incredible story that maybe I should tell someday. It's not going to be right now, but where the reputation of hard-boiled LA fiction of the Chandler variety, but also of the James Cain variety, and also Fonte too, Dan Fonte especially, was largely propped up because of the French, because they had a series after World War II called Série Noire, where they just took all of this actually kind of unrelated stuff. I mean, James Cain is different from Raymond Chandler once you start actually knowing them.
James M. Cain, though.
They're both incredible.
Fantastic.
And they started like taking, because they were desperate for any kind of literature production, and they didn't have any money, so they just steal this stuff from the pulps in LA at the time, put it into French, and put them in these signature black books. They all had the black books, and it was important. Like they took The Long Goodbye, and they just like took out 100 pages because like that doesn't fit that doesn't
they
fit
tweeted it.
They basically tweeted it. But one of the heroes to describe that to me, and who also became part of the process of understanding that kind of historical exchange, is named Philippe Garnier. Look him up. Tony's met him, I think. French dude. He was he came to America because he loved not Hunter Thompson but Grover Lewis in the original Rolling Stone magazine.
No idea who that
Grover
is.
Lewis is a wonderful but underrated journalist from the early Rolling Stone days. And Philippe wrote a series of kind of reclamation projects of LA pulp writers, and in the process he realized that some of these people whose reputations were kind of like they slingshotted, because they became popular in Série Noire in France, then intellectuals in America are like, maybe we should give pulp another chance, without realizing that they had been absolutely massacred in France and like fit into this really well done little box. It's just a great, fascinating cultural exchange thing, subject of dissertations that people who are younger and have less Omicron variant than I do should at some point do.
So, a question: do you remember? It was like the 90s, I think, or it may have been earlier. That I think it was Sparrow Press came out with that's where I had all the Fonte books, and I think maybe some Bukowski. Which
Sparrow
was
did Bukowski too,
yeah. It was just like these interesting sort of like almost pulpy paper, but not like a pulp. They were nice books, but it's like you had those on your shelves because the content was so amazing, and it was this sort of like. Just like, I mean, we both have a lot of, I mean, you more than I do because you grew up in Southern California, but we both have a LA 90s sort of like a bleeding, open, pulsing heart.
And you can tell this because recently we were listening to Everclear.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Guys.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Thanks so much.
Happy Kwanzaa. Feliz Navidad.
Yeah. And we'll see you in the new year. And I hope you don't get COVID.
Yeah. And please go, if you haven't, check out actualpalomamedia.com. It's so much great stuff there. There was a New York week that happened last week or some semi recently with just a lot of really great stuff. It's a tiny toddler little website. And Nancy and Scott are bending the time space continuum to make it happen. And it's just great.
We do.
And share it with your friends.
We have new material every day. And if you are interested, go take a look. Palomamedia.com. I'm always looking for people to give us interesting stuff. For instance, in about a week and a half, we're going to have Ghost Week. If you got something interesting and ghosty,
Ghost Week,
send it to me. And then after that, we're going to have weird weather. But basically, we're just trying to give you some delightful stuff. So go check us out. And thanks for joining us here.
And Pierce, that's an assignment. Ghost Week. Bring up your Scientology ghosts. Tony lives in the shadow of the Scientology building.
I went and reviewed the restaurant with Mark Hafley.
Oh, the brunch place by on Franklin?
No. Inside the Scientology's building. It was a restaurant in there. And when I was working, Jonathan Gold had decamped from the LA Weekly for Gourmet. I took over his restaurant column and I went there and wrote about having lunch at the Scientology building. Yeah.
Cliffhanger.
Okay.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.